15 below zero. A girl hangs from a tree, barefoot, no coat. 4 men on horseback ride away, leaving her to die. But then from her throat comes a sound, not human. Wolf howls echo back from the forest. 6 wolves, 9, 12. They're coming. This is the true story of the wolf girl and the man who saved her. December 1918, Montana. Snow fell thick outside the window of the Blackwood farmhouse, each flake catching the amber glow from the fireplace within. The wind howled across the plains like something wounded and searching, but inside warmth held its ground. Wood crackled and popped. Shadows danced across walls that had stood for 40 years, walls that had witnessed births and deaths, laughter and silence, all the small eternities that make up a life. Samuel Brooks sat in his oak chair, the same chair Warren Blackwood had sat in before him. He was 64 years old. His father-in-law Warren had passed 19 years ago, but the old man's presence still filled this room. His hair had gone white as the snow outside. His hands, thick and scarred from a lifetime of work, trembled slightly as they rested on the armrests. But his eyes were clear, sharp, the kind of eyes that had seen things worth remembering and things worth forgetting and had learned the difference. Across from him sat his grandson Michael, 16 years old, too thin, too quiet. The boy had come home from the Great War 3 weeks ago with shadows in his eyes that had no business being there. He had not yet learned to sleep through the night. Samuel heard him pacing the hallway at 2 in the morning every morning like a ghost haunting his own life. The fire burned low between them. Neither man had spoken for the better part of an hour. Sometimes silence was its own conversation. Finally, Michael looked up. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" Samuel nodded, waited. "Do you have regrets? Things you wish you'd done different?" The old man was quiet for a long moment. He reached for his pipe, packed it with tobacco, lit it with a stick from the fire. The smoke rose lazy and blue in the lamplight. "Son, I got a whole cemetery of regrets. Things I did, things I didn't do. Words I said and words I swallowed. That's what living does to a man. It piles up." He drew on the pipe, let the smoke out slow. "But I got one thing I'm proud of. More proud than anything else in my whole damn life. And it's got to do with a girl. And a pack of wolves." Michael leaned forward. For the first time in 3 weeks, something flickered behind those dead eyes. Curiosity, interest, a spark. Samuel smiled, set down his pipe. "Let me tell you a story, boy, about the winter of 1878, about what a man can become when he thinks he's got nothing left to lose, and about how sometimes the things that save us ain't the things we go looking for." The old man closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were looking at something 40 years gone, something that still lived in the furrows of his memory, bright and terrible and true. "It started," Samuel said, "with blood on snow." The fire crackled, the wind moaned, and the past opened up like a door that had been waiting all this time to swing wide. December 18th, 1878, 6:47 in the morning. The cold was the kind that killed, 15 degrees below zero. The kind of cold that turned breath to ice before it left your lungs, the kind that made metal burn to touch and wood crack like gunshots in the night. Sister Margaret Brennan hung from the lowest branch of an oak tree, her bare feet 6 inches above the frozen ground. The rope bit deep into her wrists, cutting through skin, drawing blood that steamed in the bitter air before it froze on the hemp. She wore only a thin cotton dress, gray and torn. No coat, no shoes. Her hair hung loose and wild dark against the white of the snow-covered forest. She was not a nun, not really, but she had been dressed as one when they found her, and the name had stuck. 4 men circled her on horseback. Their breath and the breath of their animals made clouds in the dawn light. The horses stamped and snorted uneasy. They could smell the wolves nearby even if the men could not. The leader sat tallest in his saddle. Colonel Jack Brennan, 42 years old, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, a man who had worn a uniform once and never quite taken it off even when the cloth was gone. He wore a heavy wool coat, beaver skin hat, gloves lined with rabbit fur. Everything about him spoke of control, of order, of a man who believed the world bent to his will. He walked his horse closer to the girl, leaned down. His voice was soft, almost kind. "Last time, girl. The man on the mountain. Warren Blackwood. Where is he?" The girl's lips were blue. Her eyes barely focused, but when she spoke her voice came out strange, broken, like someone who had forgotten how words worked. "No, no." Brennan smiled. It did not touch his eyes. "When he finds your body, he'll come down the mountain. And when he does, we'll be waiting." He straightened in his saddle, looked at his men. "Let's move out. She'll be dead in an hour. Wolves will take care of the rest." One of the hunters, a younger man with a scar across his cheek, shifted in his saddle. "Colonel, she's just a girl. Maybe we should—" Brennan's hand moved to the revolver at his hip. Did not draw it. Did not need to. "Maybe you should remember who pays your wages." The young hunter went quiet. Brennan turned his horse. The others followed. But as they rode away, something made him pause. A sound from behind him. Not quite human, not quite animal. A low, keening wail that raised the hair on the back of his neck. He turned in his saddle. The girl's head was thrown back. Her mouth was open, and from her throat came a sound like wolves calling across a dark valley, a sound that should not have come from a human mouth. From the trees an answer came, then another, then 6 more. Brennan's horse whinnied, backed up. The other horses fought their reins, eyes rolling white. "What in God's name?" the scarred hunter whispered. Brennan stared at the girl. She had stopped making the sound, but her eyes were open now, bright and clear and looking right at him. "She's calling them," he said. "The wolves. She's calling them." He drew his pistol, fired into the air, once, twice, 3 times. The echoes rolled through the forest. Birds exploded from the trees, and then there was silence. "Ride," Brennan said. "Now." They rode hard down the mountain, the sound of those inhuman cries following them like ghosts. Behind them the girl hung from the tree. Blood dripped from her wrists. The sun climbed higher, and from the shadows of the pines yellow eyes watched and waited. 1 hour earlier, 5:30 in the morning, Warren Blackwood woke to the sound of Rufus barking. The blue heeler stood at the cabin door, stiff-legged hackles raised. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Warren sat up in the narrow bunk, reached for the Winchester rifle leaning against the wall. His breath misted in the cold air. The fire had burned down to coals while he slept. "What is it, boy?" Rufus barked again, scratched at the door. Warren pulled on his boots, threw a coat over his shoulders, and opened the door. Cold hit him like a fist. The dog bolted out into the pre-dawn darkness, nose to the ground, following something Warren could not see. The cabin sat at 7,200 feet above the tree line, where the pines thinned and gave way to rock and sky. Warren had come here 2 years ago, after Grace died, after the coughing stopped and the house got too quiet and the world became a place he no longer recognized. Grace had made him promise there at the end. "Don't bury yourself with me, Warren Blackwood. Don't you dare. You go back to the mountains. You live." He had tried to keep that promise, but living and existing were different things, and most days Warren was not sure which one he was doing. The cabin was simple. 1 room, stone fireplace, a bunk barely wide enough for 1 man, a table, a chair. That was all. That was enough. Or it had been. Until this morning. Warren followed Rufus through the snow. The dog led him to the rabbit snares Warren had set 2 days ago down near the creek where the cottonwoods grew thick. Every trap was empty, the bait gone. But that was not what made Warren stop cold. Around each trap, pressed deep into the snow, were tracks. Wolf tracks. 5, maybe 6 different animals. Large, recent. The edges sharp, not yet softened by wind or new snow. But mixed in with them were other tracks. Human tracks. Bare feet? Small. Maybe a woman's, maybe a child's. The stride was strange. Sometimes on 2 feet. Sometimes the handprints appeared alongside them, as if the person had been running on all 4s. Warren knelt down, touched one of the prints. Still cold, but not frozen solid, made within the last hour. Rufus whined, looked up at Warren with worried eyes. "I know, boy. I see it too. A human being barefoot in 15 below zero running with wolves. Warren had lived in these mountains most of his life. He had seen strange things, grizzlies that walked upright, elk that seemed to understand human speech, once a mountain lion that followed him for 3 days without attacking as if it just wanted company. But this was different. This was impossible. He stood, looked at the tracks leading away into the deeper woods. Every instinct told him to turn back, to go to the cabin, to mind his own business. But then he heard it, a sound like nothing he had ever heard before, part scream, part howl, the sound of something in pain and terror and rage all at once. It came from the east. 2 miles, maybe 3. Warren looked at Rufus. "We gotta go, don't we, boy?" It was not a question. He checked the Winchester, 16 rounds, started running. The sun was just beginning to touch the peaks when Warren found them. He approached from downwind quiet as he knew how. Rufus stayed at his heel, trained not to bark. Warren crawled the last 100 yards on his belly through the snow using the thick pine trunks for cover. 4 men on horseback. He recognized the one in the front. Jack Brennan. Colonel Jack Brennan, though there was no army anymore that would claim him. Warren had served under Brennan once, back in '76 during the Indian Wars. Brennan had been a good officer then, fair, competent. But something had changed in him after the wars ended. Something had gone cold and hard, and hanging from the oak tree wrists bound above her head, feet bare and bleeding, was a girl. She could not have been more than 16. Dark hair, thin frame, dressed in rags. Her skin was pale with cold lips turning blue, but it was her eyes that stopped Warren's breath. They were open, alert, and when she looked toward the trees toward where Warren lay hidden, it seemed like she looked right at him, right through the pines in the distance, and saw him watching. Those eyes were not afraid. They were calculating. Warren heard Brennan's voice carry on the cold air. "When he finds your body, he'll come down the mountain." They were talking about him, using this girl as bait. But why Warren had done nothing to Brennan, had not seen the man in 2 years, had no quarrel with him. Unless Brennan was afraid of something Warren knew, something from the war, something that had happened in the dark places where officers did things they did not put in reports. Warren's mind raced through the possibilities. Then the girl made that sound, that inhuman wail, and the wolves answered, and Brennan fired his pistol and rode away with his men, leaving the girl to die. Warren waited until the hoofbeats faded. Then he stood, walked into the clearing. The girl's head lifted. She watched him come, did not speak, did not cry out. He stopped 10 feet away. "I'm gonna cut you down," he said. "But you gotta trust me. Can you do that?" The girl tilted her head, like a bird, like she was trying to understand the words but could not quite make them fit together into meaning. Warren took his knife from his belt, raised it slow so she could see, stepped closer, reached up and sawed through the rope binding her wrists. She fell. He caught her. She weighed almost nothing, all bone and cold skin. For a moment she struggled, made a sound in her throat, not quite a growl. Then she seemed to understand, went still in his arms. "It's okay," Warren said. "You're safe now." He pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked at it, at him, then slowly, carefully pulled it tighter. That was when the wolves came. They emerged from the trees like smoke taking shape. 6 of them, gray and black and silver, moving in a loose circle around Warren and the girl, not attacking, not threatening, watching. The largest was a female, silver coat, yellow eyes, old scars on her muzzle. She was the alpha. Warren knew it the same way you know when you are in the presence of something that could kill you with ease but chooses not to. The alpha wolf walked up to the girl, sniffed her, then licked her face with a long pink tongue. The girl made a sound, not words, something between a whimper and a purr. She reached out, touched the wolf's head. The animal leaned into her hand. Warren stood very still. His rifle was slung over his shoulder. He could not reach it without alarming the pack, not that it would do much good. 6 wolves, if they wanted him dead, would take him down before he got off 2 shots. But the girl spoke, or rather she made sounds that were not quite speech but seemed to carry meaning, low sounds, guttural. The wolves' ears pricked. The alpha looked at Warren, looked at the girl. Then one by one the pack melted back into the forest. Only the alpha remained. She sat in the snow, waiting. The girl looked up at Warren. She tried to speak. Her mouth moved, shaped words that did not quite come. "They thank you." Her voice was rough, unused, but the words were English. She could speak. Warren let out a breath he had not known he was holding. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl frowned, concentrated. Her lips moved testing sounds. Li, Zu, Beth. Elizabeth. She nodded, fierce, definite. Elizabeth. The name rang a bell in Warren's memory. Something from years ago. A story. A tragedy. But before he could place it, Rufus barked, sharp, urgent. Warren turned. In the distance, barely visible through the trees, smoke rose, thin and gray against the morning sky. Brennan had not gone far. He was camping, watching, waiting. Warren looked down at the girl, at Elizabeth. "Can you walk?" She nodded. "Then we need to go. Now." He started toward his cabin. Elizabeth followed, and behind her, silent as a ghost, the silver wolf followed too. The journey back should have taken an hour. It took 3, not because of the snow, not because of Elizabeth's bare feet, because halfway to the cabin they ran into something Warren had hoped never to see again. A grizzly bear, female, maybe 500 pounds, fresh out of hibernation, starving, angry. She rose up on her hind legs 20 yards ahead of them, roared. The sound echoed off the canyon walls. Warren froze, slowly unslung his rifle. The bear dropped to all 4s. Charged. Warren fired. Once. The shot went wide. The bear kept coming. He fired again, hit her shoulder. She stumbled but did not stop. Warren threw himself sideways. The bear's claws raked across his back. Pain exploded, hot, blinding. He went down, face first in the snow, could not breathe, could not move. The bear circled, preparing to finish him. Then Elizabeth screamed, not a human scream. The sound she made was pure wolf, raw, primal. Silver burst from the trees, the entire pack behind her. They hit the bear from all sides, biting, tearing, driving her back. The bear swung, caught one wolf across the ribs, sent it flying. But there were too many, too fast. Elizabeth grabbed a burning branch from where Warren's dropped rifle had sparked against a rock. She ran at the bear, drove the fire into its face. The bear roared, turned, ran. The wolves chased it for 50 yards, then returned. Elizabeth knelt beside Warren. Her hands moved over his back, checking the wounds. "Bad?" Warren gasped. "Not die," Elizabeth said, "but hurt, much hurt." She tore strips from her leather clothes, packed them against the bleeding. Then she did something impossible. She lifted Warren, all 180 pounds of him, threw him across her shoulders like he weighed nothing. "How?" Warren started. "Mountain makes strong," Elizabeth said simply. She carried him the rest of the way, the wolves flanking them, protecting them, and Warren, delirious with pain, understood. Elizabeth was not just some wild girl who needed saving. She was a survivor, a fighter, someone who saved others. She had saved him. The cabin was 2 miles through deep snow and thick forest. Elizabeth walked barefoot, not seeming to notice the cold. Warren offered to carry her. She shook her head, kept pace with him, her breath steady, her footfalls light. The wolf, which Warren had started thinking of as Silver, ranged ahead and behind, always keeping them in sight. They reached the cabin as the sun climbed above the eastern peaks. Warren opened the door. Warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of old smoke and coffee and leather. Elizabeth stepped inside, stopped, looked around with wide eyes. It was as if she remembered something, some distant echo of a life lived indoors. with walls and a roof and a fire. She walked to the fireplace, knelt down, held her hands out to the dying coals. Warren shut the door, barred it, set his rifle against the wall. Rufus went to his blanket by the fire and lay down watching Elizabeth with alert but friendly eyes. "You hurt anywhere?" Warren asked. Elizabeth looked at him, then slowly lifted her hands. The rope burns were deep. Blood had dried around her wrists in dark crusts. Warren went to the shelf where he kept his medical supplies. Not much. Bandages, whiskey for cleaning wounds, a needle and thread for stitches, the basics of frontier medicine. He brought the supplies to the table, gestured for Elizabeth to sit. She did, watched him with those strange clear eyes as he poured whiskey over her wrists. She did not flinch, did not make a sound, just watched the blood and dirt wash away. "This is gonna hurt," Warren said, threading the needle. Elizabeth nodded, held out her wrists. He stitched the worst of the cuts, 5 stitches on the right wrist, 3 on the left. Her hands never shook. She watched the needle go in and out of her skin with the same mild curiosity you might watch someone whittle a stick. When he was done, he wrapped her wrists in clean linen, tied it off. "There, that should hold." Elizabeth looked at the bandages, flexed her fingers. Then she did something Warren did not expect. She reached across the table, took his hand in both of hers, held it. Her hands were cold, small, but the grip was strong. "Thank you," she said again, clearer this time. Warren felt something crack open in his chest, some door that had been sealed since Grace died. He did not know what to do with it, so he just nodded. "You're welcome, miss." She let go of his hand, looked around the cabin again. Her gaze stopped on the photograph hanging on the wall above the fireplace. A woman in her 30s, dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a simple dress. Grace, taken 3 years before she died. Elizabeth stood, walked to the photograph, stared at it for a long moment. "Wife?" she asked. "Yes," Warren said. "She passed 2 years ago." "Sorry." "Me too." Elizabeth reached up, touched the frame with one finger, gentle, like she understood what it meant to lose someone. "She good?" Elizabeth asked. "The best?" "She would like me." Warren smiled despite himself. "She would have loved you." Elizabeth nodded, seemed satisfied with that answer. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The temperature rose to a bitter 10 above zero. Not much, but enough to make the world feel a little less like it was trying to kill you. Warren made coffee, put together a meal from what he had: dried venison, hardtack, an apple from the root cellar. He set it on the table. Elizabeth stared at the food, picked up the venison with both hands, bit into it like an animal would, tore, chewed, swallowed. Warren watched her, tried to imagine what her life had been like, how long she had been out there, how she had survived. "Elizabeth," he said carefully, "how long you been living with the wolves?" She stopped chewing, thought about it, held up her hand, spread her fingers, closed them, spread them again. 6, Warren guessed. She nodded. 6 years. Another nod. Warren sat back. 6 years. That would make her 10 years old when it started, maybe younger. "Where's your family? Your parents?" Elizabeth's face changed. The light went out of her eyes. She set down the venison, looked at her hands. "Gone," she said. "Dead. I'm sorry." She shook her head, like sorrow was not the right word for what she felt. Mountain, take, mountain, give. Warren understood. The mountain had taken her family, but it had also given her the wolves, given her survival, given her a strange wild life that somehow she had made work. "Why'd those men have you tied up?" he asked. Elizabeth's jaw tightened, her hands curled into fists. "Bad man. Brennan." Warren went still. "You know him, Jack Brennan?" "Yes, He kill my father. The room seemed to hold its breath. What? Elizabeth looked up. Her eyes were hard, old beyond her years. Long time ago, he lead us into mountain. Storm come, father fall, die. Brennan leave. He leave us. Warren's mind raced. He remembered now. The story from 6 years ago. A family had gone missing on a mountain expedition. The Hayes family, Rachel and David Hayes and their daughter. They had hired Jack Brennan as a guide. Search parties found David's body at the bottom of a ravine, but Rachel and the daughter were never found. Presumed dead. Elizabeth Hayes, 10 years old when she vanished, and here she was, 16 now, alive. Warren looked at the girl sitting across from him, the girl who had lived 6 years in the wilderness, who ran with wolves, who spoke in broken fragments of a language she had almost forgotten. "Elizabeth Hayes," he said softly. "Your mother was Rachel Hayes." Elizabeth's eyes went wide. She stood up so fast the chair fell over. You know my mother." "No, but I heard about what happened. Everyone did. The whole territory searched for you." "Mother, she, alive. 3 year, in cave. She teach me, read, write, sing. Then she, sick, die. I alone." Her voice broke on the last word. Warren stood, wanted to reach out, to comfort her. But he did not know if she would accept it, did not know if she understood comfort any more. "You ain't alone now," he said instead. Elizabeth looked at him. Tears ran down her cheeks. She did not seem to understand them, reached up and touched the wetness on her face with wonder. "Water," she said, "from eyes." "Tears," Warren corrected gently. "That's what we call them. Tears." "Tears," she repeated. Outside a wolf howled, close, right outside the cabin. Elizabeth went to the window, looked out. Silver was there sitting in the snow, head tilted back, calling. Elizabeth made that strange sound again, the not quite human response. Silver's ears pricked. She looked at the cabin. Then she turned and loped back into the trees. "She go," Elizabeth said, "but she come back, always come back." Warren believed her. He pulled Grace's old rocking chair close to the fire, gestured for Elizabeth to sit. "You need to rest. Sleep. You're safe here." Elizabeth looked at the chair, at the fire, at Warren. "You. Good man." "I'm trying." She sat down in the chair, curled up like a cat. Within minutes her eyes drooped, her breathing slowed. Warren covered her with a blanket, went to the window, looked out at the forest. Somewhere out there Brennan was camping, planning. Warren had no illusions about what would happen next. Brennan would come for Elizabeth, and when he did, Warren would have to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. The kind who hid, who let the world do what it wanted, or the kind who stood up, who fought. He touched the wedding ring he still wore, thought of Grace. "I think I know which one you'd want me to be," he whispered to the empty room. Behind him, Elizabeth slept, and outside the wolves began to gather. 5 miles down the mountain, Jack Brennan sat by his campfire and stared into the flames. 4 men sat with him, hired hunters, good with guns, better with following orders. Brennan took a flask from his coat, took a long pull of whiskey. The burn felt good, felt real. One of the hunters, a man named Carson with a scar across his cheek, cleared his throat. "Colonel, we should head back. Get more men. That girl's protected by wolves. And Blackwood, he ain't no fool." Brennan looked at him with cold eyes. "You scared Carson?" "I'm being practical, sir." "Practical would have been letting the girl freeze to death like I told you." Carson went quiet. Brennan stood, walked to the edge of the firelight, looked up the mountain toward where he knew Warren's cabin sat. "That girl is a problem," he said, "a problem that needs to disappear." "Why?" another hunter asked. She's just a wild thing. Nobody would believe anything she said." Brennan turned. His hand rested on the pistol at his hip. "Because 6 years ago I made a mistake. And if that girl gets back to civilization and tells her story, I hang for it." The men shifted, uncomfortable. "What mistake?" Carson asked. Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled a letter from his coat. Old, yellowed, the paper soft from being folded and unfolded too many times. He held it toward the fire. The men leaned in to see. It was a letter, written in a woman's hand. "My dearest Catherine, if you are reading this, something has gone wrong. David and I took Elizabeth on a mountain expedition with Jack Brennan as our guide. I must tell you I have misgivings. Last month Jack asked me to leave David and marry him. I refused, told him I loved my husband. He said I would regret my choice. I think he means to—" The letter ended there, torn, as if the rest had been lost or destroyed. Brennan let the men read it. Then he pulled it back, held it over the flame, let it catch, watched it burn to ash. "That letter was in Rachel Hayes's coat pocket when I found her body," he said. 3 years after the expedition. I burned the body, kept the letter, as insurance." "Insurance against what?" Carson whispered. "Against anyone ever proving I led them into that storm on purpose, that I wanted David Hayes dead because I wanted his wife, that when the storm hit and David fell, I could have saved him but chose not to." The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance a wolf howled. "Rachel and the girl survived," Brennan continued. "Rachel died later. Probably. The girl lived. And if she ever tells anyone that I abandoned them, that I could have saved them but didn't, I'm a dead man." He turned back to his men. "So we find Warren Blackwood. We take the girl, and we make sure she never speaks another word. Understood?" The men nodded. What else could they do? Brennan sat back down, stared into the fire. He had built a life these past 6 years. Reputation, wealth, respect. He was not going to let some feral girl and a washed-up mountain man take that from him. He would do what needed to be done, just like he had done 6 years ago. Night fell on the mountain. Warren sat by the fire, his rifle across his knees. Elizabeth slept in Grace's old chair, wrapped in blankets, her breathing soft and even. Rufus lay at Warren's feet, ears pricked toward the door. Outside, the temperature dropped to 20 below. Stars blazed cold and bright in a sky so clear it hurt to look at. Warren had not slept, could not sleep. His mind kept turning over everything that had happened, everything Elizabeth had told him, everything he knew about Jack Brennan. It added up to murder, premeditated, covered up, and now Brennan was trying to cover it up again. Warren had been a soldier once. He knew how men like Brennan thought, knew that they would not stop, could not stop, because stopping meant confession, meant punishment, meant the end of everything they had built on the backs of their lies. A sound outside made him look up. Not loud, just the soft crunch of snow, something moving close to the cabin. Rufus growled low in his chest. Warren stood, moved to the window, looked out. At first he saw nothing, just darkness and snow and the black wall of the forest. Then a shape moved, tall, walking on 2 legs. Warren's hand tightened on the rifle. The shape came closer, into the pale moonlight. It was a woman, tall, maybe 5'8", wearing a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat, riding gloves. She walked with purpose, no fear. She led a horse behind her, a sturdy mountain-bred mare. Warren opened the door a crack, raised his rifle. "That's far enough," he called out. The woman stopped, held up both hands. "I'm unarmed," she said. Her voice was calm, educated. "My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm a doctor from Silver Creek. I heard you might have found my niece." Warren's heart thudded in his chest. Catherine Hayes, Rachel's sister. He lowered the rifle slightly. "How'd you know she was here?" "I didn't. Not for sure. But 3 days ago a trapper came through town. Said he'd seen wolf tracks mixed with human tracks up near your cabin. Bare feet. Small, I thought. I hoped, so I came to see." Warren looked back at Elizabeth still sleeping by the fire. Then he opened the door wider. "You better come in." Catherine Hayes stepped into the cabin, took off her hat. She was younger than Warren expected, maybe 38. Dark hair, same blue eyes as Elizabeth, a strong face, the face of someone who had seen hardship and decided not to let it break her. She saw Elizabeth in the chair, froze. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's really her." She moved forward slowly, like approaching a wild animal, knelt down beside the chair. Elizabeth stirred, opened her eyes, saw Catherine. For a moment neither moved. Then Catherine reached into her coat, pulled out a small object, a music box, old, battered, the paint worn away. She wound the key on the bottom. A melody began to play, soft, fragile, a lullaby. Elizabeth sat bolt upright. Her eyes went wide. She stared at the music box, at Catherine. Her mouth opened, closed. "I know," she whispered. "I know. This." Tears ran down her face again, but this time she seemed to understand what they were. "Mama," she said. "Mama, sing this song." Catherine's voice broke. "Yes, Rachel sang this to you every night when you were little." Elizabeth reached out, touched the music box, then looked at Catherine's face. Really looked at it. "You, Aunt Catherine." "Yes, sweetheart. It's me. I've been looking for you for 6 years." Elizabeth made a sound, part sob, part laugh. She threw her arms around Catherine and held on like she was drowning, and Catherine was solid ground. Catherine held her, rocked her, made soothing sounds that needed no words. Warren stepped back, gave them space, felt like an intruder in his own cabin. But he was glad that Elizabeth had someone who knew her, who remembered her before the wolves and the wilderness, someone who could bring her back. After a long time, Elizabeth pulled away, looked at Catherine. "Brennan," she said. "Bad man. He kill Papa. He try kill me." Catherine's face went hard. "I know. I suspected for years. But I had no proof. Until now." She looked at Warren. "Thank you for protecting her." "I just did what needed doing," Warren said. "That's more than most would have done." Catherine stood, kept one hand on Elizabeth's shoulder. "We need to get her back to town, to safety, to—" Elizabeth jerked away. "No, town, danger, Brennan there. He have power, friends. I go. He win." Catherine opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, looked at Warren. "Is she right? Would Brennan hurt her in town?" Warren thought about it, about what he knew of Jack Brennan, about how power worked in small towns, about how men like that always had friends, always had ways to make problems disappear. "Yeah," he said finally. "She's right. In town she's vulnerable. Out here she's got the wolves, got the mountain, got a fighting chance." Catherine looked torn, then determined. "Then we stay, all of us, and we figure out how to bring Brennan to justice the right way." Warren nodded, liked this woman, liked her steel. Outside a wolf howled, then another, then 6 more. Elizabeth went to the window, looked out. In the moonlight the pack had gathered, all 6 of them, and in front, sitting like a statue carved from silver, was the alpha female. Elizabeth made her sound, that not quite human call. The alpha's ears pricked forward. She looked right at the cabin, right at Elizabeth. Then she turned and disappeared into the trees. The pack followed. "What did you tell them?" Warren asked. Elizabeth turned back. Her face was set, determined. "I tell them, we fight, together. We protect. Family." Catherine looked at Warren. Warren looked back. And in that moment something settled between them. An understanding. A pact. They were in this now. All of them. For better or worse. The sound that woke them came just before dawn. Not a howl, not a gunshot. A scream. Human. Male. Cut short. Warren grabbed his rifle. Elizabeth was already at the door, eyes wide but not afraid. Catherine pulled her back. "Wait." They waited. Listened. Nothing. Just the wind. Just the cold. Then slowly footsteps. Coming toward the cabin. Dragging something. Warren moved to the window. Looked out. What he saw made his blood run cold. A man. One of Brennan's hunters. The young one. Carson. He was crawling through the snow toward the cabin, leaving a trail of blood behind him. His left leg was torn. Badly. Deep gashes that looked like something with teeth had gotten hold of him. Warren threw open the door, ran out, grabbed Carson under the arms, dragged him inside. Catherine was already moving, setting up her medical kit on the table. They lifted Carson onto the table. He was going into shock, eyes unfocused, skin pale. "What happened?" Warren demanded. Carson's teeth chattered. The wolves, they attacked the camp last night, killed 2 men. Brennan, he said, to come, warn you, said, this is just the beginning. Elizabeth stepped forward, looked at the man's leg. There was no emotion on her face, just calculation. "Wolves not kill," she said. "Wolves warn." Warren looked at her. "You did this?" "I tell them. Scare, not kill. But this one, he run, he fall. Wolves chase." She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Catherine worked on the leg, cleaned the wounds, started stitching. Carson screamed, passed out. When she was done, she looked at Elizabeth. "You can't control them forever. Wolves are wild. They'll do what they want." "They family," Elizabeth said simply. "Family. Listen." Warren believed her. God help him, he believed her. He went to the window, looked out at the gray dawn light. Somewhere down the mountain, Brennan was regrouping, planning his next move. And Warren knew what it would be. Brennan would bring more men, more guns. He would come in force. And this time he would not leave until Elizabeth was dead, and Warren was too. The war had begun, and Warren Blackwood, who had come to this mountain to die in peace, found himself instead preparing to fight for something worth living for. He looked at Elizabeth, at Catherine, at the wounded man on his table. "We need a plan," he said. Catherine nodded. Elizabeth tilted her head, like she was listening to something they could not hear. Then she smiled. "I have plan," she said. "Wolves have plan. Mountain have plan." "What kind of plan?" Elizabeth's smile grew wider, showed teeth. "We make Brennan. Come to us. Then we show him who belong, this mountain." Warren felt something cold run down his spine, not fear, anticipation. Outside, the sun broke over the peaks. The world turned gold and red and achingly beautiful, and in the forest the wolves began to sing. Carson lay unconscious on Warren's table, his breathing shallow and irregular. Catherine worked over him with the practiced efficiency of someone who had stitched more wounds than she cared to count. The Civil War had taught her that, taught her how to work fast when death was standing close watching over your shoulder. Warren stood at the window, rifle in hand, watching the tree line. The sun climbed higher but gave no warmth. The temperature held at 10 below, cold enough to kill a man in an hour if he was unprepared, cold enough to slow even wolves. Elizabeth sat cross-legged on the floor near the fire, eyes closed. To someone who did not know better, she looked like she was sleeping. But Warren had learned to recognize the signs, her head tilted slightly, listening to sounds beyond human hearing. Her fingers moved in small patterns against her knees. She was communicating. With the wolves, with the mountain itself, it seemed. Catherine finished the last stitch, tied it off, covered Carson with a blanket. "He'll live," she said, "if infection doesn't set in, if he stays warm, if. Too many ifs. That was frontier medicine. Do your best and hope God did the rest." "How long we got?" Warren asked. Before what? Before Brennan comes with everything he's got. Catherine washed her hands in the basin. The water turned pink, then red. Depends how angry he is, how scared. If I know Jack Brennan, and I do, he won't wait long. Pride won't let him. You know him well. Catherine's jaw tightened. Well enough. He courted my sister before she met David. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Showed up at their house even after the wedding. Brought flowers, gifts, acting like David didn't exist. She dried her hands on a towel. Rachel was afraid of him. But in those days, women couldn't just call the law on a man for being persistent. That's what they called it. Persistent. Warren felt anger curl in his gut. The old kind. The kind that had gotten him in trouble during the war, when officers gave orders that made no sense and soldiers died for pride. "He's coming today," Elizabeth said suddenly. Her eyes opened. Still that strange clear blue that seemed to see through things. "Before sun go down. He bring many men, 7, maybe 8. They have guns, anger, fear." "How do you know?" Catherine asked. Elizabeth tilted her head. "Wolves watch. They see. Brennan's men, they break camp. They ride this way. Not fast, careful, but they come." Warren checked his rifle. 16 rounds. He had another Winchester older with a loose trigger. Maybe 12 rounds if he was lucky. A pistol, 6 shots, and his hunting knife. Against 7 or 8 men, it was not enough. Catherine seemed to read his thoughts. "I brought a rifle," she said. "I can shoot." Warren looked at her. Really looked. Saw past the doctor's coat and the educated speech. Saw the steel underneath. Civil War. Field nurse. But nurses carried guns too. Learned to shoot when the rebels came too close to the hospital tents. Warren almost smiled. "Then I guess we got ourselves a fighting chance." Elizabeth stood, walked to the door, put her hand flat against the wood like she could feel something through it. "We not fight here," she said. "Too easy. They burn cabin. We die." "Then where?" Warren asked. Elizabeth turned. Her face was serious, old beyond her 16 years. "We go to Mother's place, the cave. There mountain help us. There wolves help us. There we make them fight on our ground." Catherine went pale. "The cave where Rachel died." Elizabeth nodded. "Mother's bones still there. She watch. She protect." It was strange logic, maybe crazy logic, but Warren had lived in the mountains long enough to know that the world did not always work the way books said it should. Sometimes the land had its own rules, its own justice. "How far?" he asked. 5 mile, hard walk, but safe. Wolves no way." Warren looked at Carson on the table. Unconscious, wounded, a liability. "We can't take him." "No," Catherine agreed. "But we can't leave him to freeze either." Elizabeth walked to the table, looked down at Carson. For a moment something like pity crossed her face, then it was gone. "He choose follow Brennan, he choose wrong side, but he live. I make wolves leave him. When he wake he go down mountain, tell town what happen." "Will they believe him?" Warren asked. Elizabeth shrugged. "Not matter, we not there to hear." She was right. They were past the point of caring what the town thought. Warren went to his footlocker, pulled out everything useful. Extra ammunition, dried meat, a wool blanket, matches, a tin pot for melting snow, the basics of survival. Catherine gathered her medical supplies. Not much. She could not carry much. Just the essentials: bandages, whiskey, needle and thread. They worked in silence, the kind of silence that comes when people know what's ahead and words won't change it. Outside, the wolves began to gather. Warren could see them through the window, 6 at first, then 8, then 12, more than he had ever seen together. They sat in a loose circle around the cabin patient as Stone's yellow eyes watching the forest, waiting. Elizabeth went to the door, opened it. Cold rushed in like something physical. She stepped out onto the porch, made that sound. That call that was not quite human, not quite wolf. The pack stirred. The Alpha Silver stood, walked to the porch, sat at Elizabeth's feet. Elizabeth knelt, put her forehead against the wolf's head. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Elizabeth spoke. Not in English, not in wolf, something in between. A language that had no name because only one person in the world spoke it. Silver's ears went back. Forward. She made a low sound in her chest. Elizabeth stood, came back inside. "They ready?" she said. "We go now." Warren took one last look around the cabin, at the table where he and Grace had eaten breakfast every morning for 10 years, at the chair where she had sat and read to him in the evenings, at the bed where she had died. He was leaving it all behind, but somehow he did not feel sad. He felt free. They left Carson on the table with the fire built high and the door unbarred. If he woke, he could save himself. If he did not, well, the mountain would take him like it took everyone eventually. Warren locked the door to his past and followed Elizabeth into the snow. The wolves closed in around them, not threatening, protecting. And they walked into the white wilderness as the sun reached its peak and began its long fall toward night. Behind them, riding hard up the mountain trail, Jack Brennan and 7 armed men pushed their horses through the deep snow. The hunt had begun. The journey to the cave took 3 hours. Elizabeth led, moving through the forest like water flowing downhill. She knew every tree, every rock, every hidden path. The wolves ranged ahead and behind, silent scouts reporting back with sounds only she could hear. Warren and Catherine followed. Catherine struggled in places where the snow was deep or the slope was steep, but she never complained. Just kept moving, kept breathing. Warren found himself admiring her. Not many women he knew would walk into this kind of danger without hesitation. But Catherine had a reason. Elizabeth. Family. The only family she had left. They stopped once to rest. Warren melted snow in the tin pot over a small fire Elizabeth built with practiced ease. They drank the lukewarm water and ate strips of dried venison and did not talk much. Words felt like a luxury they could not afford. When they started again, the forest began to change. The pines grew thicker, older. The silence deepened. It felt like walking into a church, but a church older than any man-made religion. "Close," Elizabeth said. 10 minutes later they arrived. The cave mouth was hidden behind a tumble of boulders and dead falls. You could walk within 10 feet and never see it. But Elizabeth knew. She squeezed through a gap barely wide enough for her shoulders. Warren and Catherine followed. Inside the cave opened up into a space about 20 feet wide and 40 feet deep. The ceiling was high enough to stand. The floor was dirt and stone worn smooth by water that had run through here 1,000 years ago. Light came from cracks in the rock above, thin and gray, but enough to see by. And in the back corner, laid out with care, were the bones. Catherine made a sound, dropped to her knees. The skeleton was small, female, laid on its back, hands folded across the chest. Around the bones were arranged objects: a tin cup, a wooden comb, a book the pages long since rotted to pulp, and a music box twin to the one Catherine had brought. Rachel Hayes had been buried here by her daughter, laid to rest as well as a 10-year-old could manage. Catherine crawled forward, touched the skull with shaking fingers. "Rachel, oh God, Rachel!" Elizabeth knelt beside her, put her hand on Catherine's shoulder. "Mother sleep here, safe. Mountain take care." "She was alone," Catherine whispered. "Alone and in pain, and she died alone." "No," Elizabeth said firmly. "She not alone. I there. I hold her hand. I sing. She hear mother song one last time. Then she go. Peaceful." Catherine turned, grabbed Elizabeth, held her. "I'm so sorry. Sorry we didn't find you. Sorry we stopped looking. Sorry, sorry, sorry." Elizabeth patted her back awkwardly, like she half remembered how comfort worked. "Not your fault. Mountain decide. Mountain take some. Give some back. I hear now. That what matter." Warren stood back, gave them space. His eyes scanned the cave, looking for advantages, for defensible positions. The cave had 2 entrances, the main one they had come through, and a smaller one at the back, barely a crack in the rock, big enough for a child or a wolf, too small for a grown man. Good. That meant Brennan's men could only come one way. He set down his pack, started to build a fire near the center of the cave where the smoke would rise through the cracks and not give away their position. Catherine finally pulled away from Rachel's bones, wiped her eyes. We should bury her proper. Later, Warren said, not unkind. When this is over, we'll take her down the mountain, give her a Christian burial. But right now we got to focus on staying alive. Catherine nodded, understood. Elizabeth went to the small back entrance, whistled, a complicated pattern of sounds. From outside an answer came. She turned back to Warren and Catherine. Wolves take position. They watch all direction. No one come without we know. Warren checked his rifle, his pistol, laid out his ammunition where he could reach it fast. How long you think before they find us? Catherine asked. Not long, Warren said. Carson will wake up. Tell Brennan which way we went. Brennan's got hunters with him. They'll track us. Be here by nightfall if we're lucky, sooner if we're not. And then, Warren looked at Elizabeth. Then we find out if wolves and mountain are enough to beat men with guns. Elizabeth smiled, that wild, fierce smile that showed too many teeth. We find out, she agreed. Outside, the sun began its descent. The temperature dropped, and somewhere in the forest, men with murder on their minds followed a blood trail through the snow. Night came fast to the mountains in winter. One moment there was light, thin and gray, filtering through the trees. The next darkness fell like a curtain, the kind of darkness that made men nervous, made them jump at sounds, made them see things that were not there. Warren kept the fire small, just enough for warmth, not enough to throw light beyond the cave mouth. They took turns on watch, Warren first, then Catherine. Elizabeth did not sleep. She sat at the cave entrance, eyes reflecting the firelight like an animal's listening to things they could not hear. Around midnight she stood. They hear? Warren was up in an instant, rifle in hand. How many? 7 men. 3 wolves scout already tell me. Men camp 1 mile down. Build fire. Talk loud. Drink. They come at dawn. That gives us 6 hours, Warren said. 6 hours to do what? Catherine asked. Warren thought fast. In war he had learned that the best defense was a good offense. Never let the enemy choose the ground. Never let them come to you on their terms. Elizabeth, can the wolves harass them? Keep them nervous, not kill, just scare. Elizabeth nodded. Wolves good at scare. They circle. They howl. They make men no sleep. Do it. Elizabeth made her sounds, low, urgent. From outside answers came, then silence. But it was a different silence. A purposeful one. Warren smiled in the dark. Now we wait. An hour passed. Then from down the mountain they heard it. Shouts, gunfire, the terrified whinnying of horses, more shouts, then quiet. Then it started again. Warren could imagine what was happening. The wolves circling the camp, never attacking, just appearing at the edge of the firelight, yellow eyes, white teeth, then vanishing, reappearing somewhere else, driving the men crazy. The gunfire came in bursts, wild, panicked, men wasting ammunition on shadows. By 3 in the morning the shooting stopped. The men were conserving bullets, getting smart, or getting tired. At 4 Warren heard voices, closer now. The men were moving, coming toward the cave. They figured it out, Catherine said. Or they got desperate, Warren replied. Men do stupid things when they're scared and tired. Elizabeth moved to the cave mouth, crouched, became very still. Minutes crawled by. Then Warren heard it. Footsteps. Trying to be quiet. Failing. He raised his rifle, sighted down the barrel at the black shape of the cave entrance. A voice called out. Brennan's voice. Warren Blackwood, I know you're in there, and I know you've got the girl. Warren said nothing. This doesn't have to be complicated, Warren. Send the girl out. Walk away. I've got no quarrel with you. Still nothing. Don't be a fool, Warren. You can't win this. 7 men against 1. Bad odds. Warren smiled in the dark. Seems to me you got it backwards, Jack. I got the high ground. I got cover, and I got wolves. You're the one in a bad spot. Brennan was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, but it sounded forced. You always were stubborn, Warren. Remember the war. Remember how that stubbornness got your whole squad killed. The words hit like a fist. Warren felt Catherine look at him in the darkness. It was true. During the war, Warren had refused an order to retreat, thought he could hold a position against overwhelming odds. 40 men had died because of his pride. It was why he had come to the mountains, to forget, to hide from that memory. Brennan knew, and he was using it. That's right, Brennan continued. You got 40 men killed because you wouldn't listen. You gonna get these women killed too. That doctor, that wild girl who doesn't even understand what's happening. Warren's hand tightened on the rifle. Don't listen to him, Catherine whispered. He's trying to get in your head. But it was working. Warren could feel the old guilt crawling up from the pit where he had buried it. Elizabeth turned, looked at Warren. What'd he say? She asked. About men die. Warren closed his eyes. Long time ago, I made a mistake. Men died because of it. You killed them. No, but I might as well have. Elizabeth thought about this, then shrugged. Everyone make mistake. Mother make mistake. Take me to mountain with bad man. She die. I almost die. But I live. I strong now. Mistake make us strong, if we learn. Her simple logic cut through the guilt like a knife. Warren opened his eyes. You're right, he said. He raised his voice. Jack, I ain't giving you nothing. You want the girl, you come get her. But know this. I ain't the same man I was in the war. I learned. And I ain't letting more people die on my watch. Silence from outside. Then Brennan's voice again, harder now. Have it your way. We'll dig you out. And when we do, I'll make sure you watch while I put a bullet in that girl's head. Footsteps retreating. Warren turned to Elizabeth. They'll attack soon. Probably wait for first light so they can see. We got maybe an hour. Good, Elizabeth said. Wolves ready. I ready. We show them what mountain do to bad men. But Catherine was looking at Warren with concern. What he said. About the war. Is it true? Warren nodded. Every word. And you've been carrying that alone all this time. Seemed like the right punishment. Catherine reached out, touched his arm. Warren, men make choices in war that haunt them forever. I saw it in the field hospitals. Men who survived when their friends didn't. The guilt ate them alive. But here's what I learned. The ones who survived had a responsibility. To live well. To honor the dead by being better than they were before. Warren looked at her. In the faint firelight her face was kind, understanding. You think that's what I'm doing here, honoring the dead. I think you're trying, and that counts for something. Elizabeth made a sound. Sun comes soon. Men come soon. We stop talk. We fight. She was right. Warren moved to the cave entrance, set up his position, rifle resting on a rock. Good angle. Good cover. Catherine took a position further back, her rifle aimed at the entrance, ready to provide backup. Elizabeth crouched near the small back exit, ready to move either direction depending on where she was needed. The wolves were out there, waiting, watching. The sky began to lighten in the east. Gray dawn, the light of judgment. And then they came, not all at once, smart. 3 men rushed the cave entrance from different angles, firing as they came. Bullets sparked off stone, ricocheted. One came so close to Warren's head he felt the air move. He fired back, twice, saw one man drop hit in the leg. Not fatal, just enough to take him out of the fight. The other 2 made it to cover. Boulders on either side of the cave mouth, they fired in, trying to pin Warren down. Catherine returned fire. Her shot went wild but close enough to make one man duck. Then the wolves hit. They came from the flanks, 4 of them, fast and low. They did not go for the men behind cover. They went for the wounded man still crawling for safety. The wolves circled him, snarling, snapping, not biting, just terrifying him. The man screamed, tried to raise his rifle. A wolf knocked it from his hands with one paw. The two men behind cover tried to help their friend, exposed themselves. Warren fired, hit one in the shoulder. The man spun, fell. Catherine's next shot was better. Hit the other man's rifle, smashed it. The man dropped it, ran. That left 4 men, Brennan and 3 others. Warren could hear Brennan shouting orders, trying to regroup, but his men were breaking. The wolves had done their job, broken their nerve. Then something changed. Warren heard a new sound. A whoosh, a crash, fire. One of Brennan's men had thrown a torch into the cave mouth. It landed near the back, caught on old dry wood that someone, maybe Rachel, had stacked years ago. Flames leaped up, spread fast. Smoke filled the cave. "Out!" Warren shouted. "We have to get out." Catherine grabbed her bag, started for the entrance. Elizabeth did not move. "Elizabeth!" Warren called. "Now." But Elizabeth was looking at something, her eyes wide. Warren turned. Old Jack Morrison stood in the cave entrance, not one of Brennan's men. Warren recognized him. A hermit who lived even higher up the mountain. 75 years old, long gray hair, beard down to his chest. "Follow me," old Jack said. "I know a way out, secret way." Warren hesitated, could not trust anyone now. "Why would you help us?" "Because I've been watching. I know what Brennan did, and I'm tired of being quiet." Elizabeth moved to old Jack, sniffed him like she was a wolf, then nodded. "He tell truth. I smell truth." That was good enough for Warren. They followed old Jack through the smoke through the small back exit. It was a tight squeeze. Warren barely fit. But they made it through. Outside, the wolves waited. Old Jack led them into the forest, down a path Warren had never seen, through thick undergrowth, over a frozen stream. Behind them they heard Brennan's voice shouting in rage. They ran. For an hour they ran, until their lungs burned and their legs screamed and the cold felt like knives in their chests. Finally old Jack stopped. A small clearing. No tracks. No signs anyone had ever been here. "Safe for now?" he gasped. They collapsed, breathing hard. Catherine checked everyone for injuries, minor scrapes, nothing serious. Warren looked at old Jack. Why help us after all this time?" Old Jack sat down on a fallen log, looked old, tired. "Because I've got a daughter. Had a daughter. She died 20 years back. When I look at that girl," he pointed at Elizabeth, "I see my Sarah, and I think if Sarah had been lost in these mountains, I'd want someone to help her." He looked at the ground. "Also, I saw what Brennan did, yesterday. I was hunting. I saw him shoot one of his own men. The deputy marshal shot him in the back for arguing." Warren went cold. "You sure?" "I'm sure. I was 50 feet away. Watched the whole thing. Brennan killed him, left the body in the snow." Catherine leaned forward. "Would you testify in court?" Old Jack laughed. Bitter. Who'd believe an old drunk hermit against the word of Colonel Jack Brennan, war hero? "I would," Catherine said. "I would," Warren agreed. Old Jack looked at them. Something shifted in his eyes. "You mean it?" "We do." Old Jack was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. All right, I'll do it. I'll tell what I saw. But we gotta get out of these mountains first. Get to Helena, to the law." "How far?" Warren asked. 30 miles, 2 days on foot, 3 if the weather turns." Warren looked at Elizabeth. She was watching the trees, listening to the wolves talking in the distance. "Can we make it?" he asked her. Elizabeth turned. Her face was set, determined. "We make it. But first, we finish this. We stop Brennan. Forever." "How?" Elizabeth smiled, that fierce, wild smile. "We make him follow us, into deep mountain, where we strong, where he weak. Then we trap him, show everyone what he is, make him confess." It was bold, maybe crazy, but looking at the certainty in Elizabeth's eyes, Warren believed it could work. Catherine stood. Then we better get moving. Time's not on our side." They gathered their things. Old Jack led the way. The wolves followed, and behind them miles back, but getting closer, Jack Brennan and his remaining men tracked them through the snow. The trap was being set. The question was who would spring it, and who would be caught. 3 days passed in the deep wilderness. Old Jack led them to places Warren had never seen, hidden valleys, ancient groves, places where the trees grew so thick the snow barely reached the ground. They ate what they could hunt: rabbits, one scraggly deer that Elizabeth brought down with a well-thrown rock. They slept in shifts, always moving, always watching. The wolves reported back regularly. Elizabeth would stop, tilt her head, listen to their howls. Then she would tell Warren and Catherine what she had learned. Brennan still followed. 4 men left with him. They tired, hungry, 1 man sick. But Brennan pushed them. He obsessed. "Good," Warren said. "Obsessed men make mistakes." On the 4th day, they reached the place Elizabeth had been leading them to. A box canyon, high walls on 3 sides, only one way in or out. A narrow defile maybe 20 feet wide. It was perfect. "Here," Elizabeth said. "We make stand here." Warren studied the terrain. It was good ground. They could defend the entrance. The wolves could attack from above, where the canyon walls sloped enough for them to climb but too steep for men. But there was a risk. If Brennan brought enough men, enough firepower, they could be trapped. Catherine saw his concern. "It's a gamble," she said. "Whole thing's a gamble," Warren replied. They spent the day preparing. Warren and Old Jack piled rocks at the canyon entrance. Not a wall, but obstacles. Things that would slow men down, give them targets. Elizabeth ranged the canyon walls with the wolves, finding positions, planning attack routes. Catherine organized their supplies: water, food, ammunition, medical supplies. By nightfall, they were as ready as they could be. They built a fire, not hiding anymore, wanting Brennan to see, to follow. They ate, rested, did not talk much. Around midnight, Warren stood watch. The others slept. Even Elizabeth curled up near the fire with Silver's head on her lap. Warren thought about Grace, about what she would say if she could see him now. Probably something like, "Took you long enough to find something worth fighting for." He smiled at that. Then he heard it. Voices. Distant but clear in the cold night air. Brennan was close. Warren woke the others. Quietly. Efficiently. They took their positions. And they waited. Dawn came gray and cold. And with it came Jack Brennan. He rode into view at the canyon entrance, sitting tall in his saddle. 4 men with him, all armed, all looking nervous. Brennan stopped, looked up at the canyon walls, at the narrow entrance, at the fire still burning in the center of the canyon. He smiled. "Warren Blackwood," he called. "I have to admit I'm impressed. You've led me a good chase, but it's over now. You've trapped yourself. Nowhere to run." Warren stepped out from behind cover, rifle pointed at Brennan's chest. "Seems to me you're the one in a trap, Jack. You came into my canyon, my ground, and you're about to find out that was a mistake." Brennan's smile did not falter. "You can't shoot all of us." "Maybe not, but I can shoot you, and that's all that matters." Brennan's eyes narrowed. "You won't. You're not a killer, Warren. You're a coward who hides in the mountains because you got your men killed in the war." The words still stung, but less than before. "You're right," Warren said. "I did get men killed, and I've regretted it every day since. But I learned something. I learned that sometimes you have to fight, even when you're scared, even when you might lose, because some things are worth dying for." He stepped forward. "That girl you're hunting, Elizabeth, she's worth dying for. She's innocent. She survived things that would break most men, and I'll be damned if I let a murdering coward like you take her." Brennan's face went dark. "Murdering coward? You don't know what you're talking about." "I know you killed Deputy Marshal Thompson 3 days ago, shot him in the back. Old Jack here saw the whole thing." Old Jack stepped out, nodded. "I saw it, Brennan. Saw you murder him in cold blood." Brennan's hand moved toward his pistol. Then the wolves came. They poured over the canyon walls like a gray wave. 12 of them, maybe more, moving fast, silent. Brennan's horse reared. He fought to control it. His men opened fire, wild, panicked. Warren dove for cover, returned fire, hit one man in the leg. Catherine shot from her position. Her bullet hit another man's horse. The animal went down, pinning the rider. Elizabeth appeared on the canyon wall above Brennan. She made her sound, that inhuman call. The wolves circled Brennan and his men, not attacking, just surrounding, trapping. Brennan's eyes found Elizabeth. "You," he said, "this is all because of you. If you had just died like you were supposed to, none of this would have happened." Elizabeth looked down at him. Her face was calm, cold. "You kill my father. You leave my mother to die. You try kill me. Why?" Carson, the scarred hunter they thought had fled, stepped out from behind Brennan's horse. But he wasn't aiming at Warren, he was aiming at Brennan. "I heard everything," Colonel Carson said, voice shaking. "You told us Thompson fell. You said it was an accident, but I saw it. I saw you shoot him in the back, and I'm not dying for you." Brennan's face went white. "Carson, you fool. I'm done being a fool." Carson pulled out a folded paper. "This is Deputy Marshal Thompson's last report. He was investigating you, knew about the Hayes family, was going to expose you. That's why you killed him." Warren felt hope surge. Real evidence. A witness willing to testify. Brennan lunged for his pistol. Warren fired, hit Brennan's hand. The confession, the witness, the evidence, it was over. "Because your mother was supposed to be mine," Brennan shouted. "She was supposed to marry me, but she chose that fool David instead. So I took them into the mountains, and I made sure David didn't come back." The words hung in the air. A confession, clear and damning. Warren felt triumph surge through him. Brennan had broken, had admitted everything. But then Brennan laughed. "Not that it matters. No one will believe you. A drunk hermit. A wild girl who can barely speak. A disgraced soldier and a woman doctor. Your word against mine. I'll walk free. I always do." He raised his pistol, aimed at Elizabeth. "But first I'm going to kill the bitch that ruined everything." Time seemed to slow. Warren saw Brennan's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Elizabeth standing on the rock, unarmed, exposed. He did not think. Just moved. Threw himself in front of Elizabeth's position. Raised his rifle. Fired. The bullet hit Brennan's gun hand. The pistol flew from his grip. Brennan screamed. Grabbed his hand. His men, seeing their leader wounded, broke. Ran. The wolves chased them, not to kill, just to make sure they kept running. Within seconds, only Brennan remained. On his horse, hand bleeding, surrounded by wolves. Warren walked up to him, rifle trained on his chest. "Get down." Brennan dismounted, slowly, his eyes filled with hate. "You've won nothing," he said. "I have friends, power. I'll be free in a week." "Maybe," Warren said, "but everyone's going to know what you did, and that's enough." Old Jack came forward, pulled rope from his pack, tied Brennan's hands behind his back. Catherine approached Elizabeth, who was climbing down from the rocks. "Are you okay?" Elizabeth nodded, looked at Brennan. "He's small now, weak. He have power before, but power from fear, from lie. Now everyone know truth. He have nothing." She was right. Brennan looked smaller, diminished. Without his gun, without his men, without his lies, he was just a bitter old man who had let jealousy turn him into a killer. They started the journey down the mountain. Brennan walking in front, hands bound. Old Jack leading the horse. Warren and Catherine on either side. Elizabeth ranging ahead with the wolves. It took 2 days to reach Helena. 2 days of Brennan cursing, threatening, pleading, promising them money, power, anything if they would let him go. They ignored him. On the afternoon of the second day, they saw the town. Helena, bigger than Silver Creek, a real city with a real courthouse and real law. They walked down the main street. People stared, pointed, whispered. A wild girl with wolves following her, a bleeding man with his hands tied, a ragtag group that looked like they had walked out of some frontier legend. Warren led them straight to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Thomas Burke was a big man, 60 years old, gray beard, sharp eyes. He looked at them, at Brennan, at the wolves sitting outside his office like dogs. "This better be good," he said. Warren told him everything. Old Jack corroborated. Catherine added what she knew. Elizabeth spoke in her broken English, telling about her father's death, her mother's suffering, Brennan's attempts to kill her. Burke listened, did not interrupt. When they finished, he looked at Brennan. "You got anything to say, Colonel?" Brennan straightened, tried to regain some dignity. "These people are liars and lunatics. I demand you release me and arrest them for assault and kidnapping." Burke stared at him for a long moment. Then he pulled out handcuffs, locked them on Brennan's wrists. "Colonel Jack Brennan, you're under arrest for the murder of Deputy Marshal James Thompson, for the murder of David Hayes, for the attempted murder of Rachel and Elizabeth Hayes, and for being a general piece of shit." He looked at his deputy. "Put him in a cell, the good one. I want him to be comfortable before we hang him." As they dragged Brennan away, he screamed, "You can't do this. I'm a war hero. I have rights." Burke looked at Warren. "War hero, huh?" He was, once, long time ago, but something broke in him. "Something breaks in all of us," Burke said. "Question is whether we fix it or let it turn us into that." He gestured at Brennan, still screaming, as they locked the cell door. Warren nodded. Understood. Burke turned to Elizabeth. "Miss Hayes, I'll need you to testify. Can you do that?" Elizabeth looked uncertain. Catherine stepped forward. "I'll help her. We'll make sure she's ready." Burke nodded, looked at the wolves still waiting outside. "Those animals going to be a problem?" Elizabeth shook her head. "They go soon. Back to mountain. I tell them thank you. Tell them go home." She went outside, made her sounds. The wolves stirred. Silver approached. Elizabeth knelt, put her forehead against the wolf's. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Silver turned, loped away into the gathering dusk. The pack followed. Elizabeth watched them go. There were tears on her face. Catherine put a hand on her shoulder. "You can go back. Visit them. You don't have to leave them forever." Elizabeth nodded, but did not speak, could not speak. Warren understood. She was caught between two worlds, the wild and the civilized, and saying goodbye to one meant accepting the other. It was a hard choice, maybe an impossible one, but it was hers to make. They stayed in Helena for 3 weeks. The trial was swift. Old Jack testified. Warren testified. Catherine testified. Elizabeth, with Catherine's help, told her story. The jury deliberated for 30 minutes, found Brennan guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to hang. 2 days later, they carried out the sentence. Warren did not watch. Neither did Elizabeth or Catherine. They had seen enough death. But old Jack went, said it was important to see justice done. When he came back, he was quiet, thoughtful. "He didn't show no remorse," old Jack said. "Right up to the end, blamed everyone but himself." "Some men are like that," Warren said. "Can't see their own faults, only everyone else's." "Suppose so." They sat in silence for a while. Then Catherine spoke. "What will you do now, Warren? Go back to your cabin?" Warren thought about it. The cabin was gone, burned by Brennan's men. Even if it was not, it felt like part of an old life, a life he had already left behind. "No," he said. I think maybe it's time I rejoined the world. Been hiding long enough?" Catherine smiled. "There's a town, Silver Creek. They need a good man, someone who knows the mountains, maybe someone who could be sheriff one day." Warren laughed. "Sheriff, I'm no lawman." "You brought a killer to justice. You protected the innocent. Sounds like a lawman to me." Warren looked at Elizabeth. "What about you? What do you want?" Elizabeth had been quiet for days, processing everything. The trial, the city, the noise and crowds and strangeness of civilization. She looked up now, met Warren's eyes. I want both. I want learn, read, write good, be with Aunt Catherine, but also I want mountain, want wolves, want free. You can't have both, Catherine said gently. Why not? It was a simple question, a child's question, but it cut through all the complexity and landed on the truth. Why not? Warren smiled. She's right. Why can't she have both? Winter, she stays with you in town, learns, grows. Summer, she comes to the mountain, stays wild, stays free. Catherine thought about it, then slowly nodded. It's unusual, but then everything about Elizabeth is unusual. Elizabeth's face lit up, the first real smile Warren had seen on her in weeks. Yes, I do that. Winter, I be Elizabeth Hayes' town girl. Summer, I be Beth Wolf's sister. She stood, spun in a circle like a child. I have two life, two family, two home. I lucky. Warren felt something warm spread through his chest. It was hope, real hope, the kind he had not felt since Grace died. Maybe he could have two lives too. Mountain man in summer, town dweller in winter. Maybe he did not have to choose. Maybe none of them did. That night as they packed to return to Silver Creek, Warren stood on the hotel balcony and looked at the stars. He thought about Grace, about how she had told him to live. He thought about the 40 men who died because of his stubbornness in the war. He thought about Elizabeth, about Catherine, about old Jack, about second chances and redemption and the strange paths life took. And for the first time in 2 years, Warren Blackwood felt like he was finally truly alive. Behind him, Elizabeth came out onto the balcony, stood beside him. "You think about wife?" she asked. "Yeah." "She proud of you?" Warren looked at her. "You think so?" "I know. Mountain tell me. She watch. She see. She proud." It was nonsense, the kind of mystical talk that Elizabeth had picked up from living wild, but Warren chose to believe it anyway. "Thanks, kid." "You welcome, father." The word hit him like a punch. Father. I ain't your father. You save me. You teach me. You protect me. You father. Not blood father, but father in heart. That matter more. Warren felt his throat close, could not speak. Elizabeth patted his hand, then went back inside. Warren stood alone on the balcony, looked at the stars, and allowed himself for the first time to imagine a future that did not end with him dying alone on a mountain. A future with family, with purpose, with life. It was a good feeling. The journey back to Silver Creek took 5 days. The weather held. The roads were clear. They made good time. When they arrived, the town gathered to meet them. News had spread. The wild girl. The killer brought to justice. The mountain man who became a hero. Elizabeth shrank back from the crowd. Too many people. Too much noise. But Catherine held her hand, and Warren stood close, and slowly Elizabeth relaxed. The mayor, a portly man named Henderson, approached. "Miss Hayes, on behalf of Silver Creek, I want to welcome you home. Your family has deep roots here. We're glad to have you back." Elizabeth nodded, did not know what to say. The mayor turned to Warren. "Mr. Blackwood, the town council has discussed your actions. We'd like to offer you a position, deputy sheriff, if you're interested." Warren almost laughed. Him, a lawman. A week ago it would have seemed impossible, but now it felt right. "I accept," he said. The crowd cheered. That night they had a feast. The whole town turned out. Food, music, dancing. Elizabeth watched it all with wide eyes. So much noise, so much light, so many people. But slowly she began to relax, began to smile, began to tap her foot to the music. Catherine introduced her to people, good people, kind people, people who did not judge her for being different. And Elizabeth bit by bit began to understand that civilization did not have to be a prison. It could be something else, a place of warmth, of belonging. Around midnight, Elizabeth found Warren sitting on the porch of the town hall away from the noise. She sat beside him. "Too much?" he asked. "Little bit, but good too. People nice. Most people are, if you give them a chance." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Elizabeth spoke. "Thank you. For everything. For save me. For believe in me. For be my family." Warren put his arm around her shoulders. "You're welcome. But you saved me too, kid. I came to that mountain to die. You taught me to live again." Elizabeth leaned against him. "We save each other. That what family do." And sitting there under the stars with music playing and people laughing and the promise of tomorrow spread out before them, Warren Blackwood understood that he had finally come home. Not to a place, but to a purpose, to people who needed him, and who he needed in return. The mountain would always be there, waiting, calling. But for now, he had found something better. He had found a reason to stay. The winter of 1878 turned to spring. Snow melted from the mountains, rushing down in silver streams that fed the rivers. The valleys turned green. Wildflowers bloomed in colors so bright they hurt the eyes. The world came back to life, and with it, so did the people. Elizabeth spent those first months in Silver Creek living with Catherine in a small house on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a parlor with a fireplace, 4 walls and a roof. To most people it was simple, modest. To Elizabeth it felt like a palace and a prison all at once. She struggled at first. The walls felt too close, the ceiling too low. At night she would wake gasping, clawing at the blankets, certain she was trapped, buried alive. Catherine would come to her room, sit on the edge of the bed, hold her hand until the panic passed. "It's okay," Catherine would say. "You're safe. You're home." But Elizabeth was not sure where home was anymore. Was it these 4 walls? Or was it the cave where her mother's bones rested? Or was it running through the trees with Silver and the pack free and wild and answerable to nothing but the mountain? She did not know. But she tried. For Catherine, for Warren, for herself. Catherine hired a tutor, Mrs. Adelaide Morrison, a widow in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a voice like a schoolmarm. She came 3 times a week, brought books, slates, pencils. At first Elizabeth could barely sit still for 5 minutes. She would jump up, pace, look out the window toward the mountains. But Mrs. Morrison was patient. She did not scold, did not force. She just kept teaching, kept reading aloud, kept writing words on the slate and showing Elizabeth how they fit together to make meaning. Slowly, bit by bit, Elizabeth began to learn, or rather to remember. It turned out Rachel had taught her well in those 3 years in the cave. The foundations were there, buried under 6 years of survival and silence, but still there. Within 2 months, Elizabeth could read simple sentences. Within 4 months, she was reading entire books. Children's books at first, then harder ones. Her handwriting improved. Her vocabulary grew. She started speaking in complete sentences instead of broken fragments, but she never lost the wolf in her eyes. That alertness, that wildness. It was part of her now, permanent as a scar. The town did not know what to make of her. Some people were kind, brought her food, invited her to church, smiled and waved when she walked past. Others were afraid, crossed the street when they saw her coming, whispered behind their hands, called her the wolf girl, the wild thing, the devil's daughter. Elizabeth did not care much either way. She had learned in the wilderness that some people's opinions mattered and some did not. The wolves had taught her that. They did not waste energy on creatures that were not threats or food or pack. Warren visited often. He had taken a room above the general store, started his work as deputy sheriff. It turned out he was good at it, better than he expected. He knew the mountains, knew the people who lived on the edges, could track a man through forest or snow better than anyone in 3 counties. Within a month he had caught 2 cattle thieves, found a missing child, and talked down a drunk miner who was threatening to blow up the assay office. The town started to respect him, then to like him, then to trust him. Sheriff Burke, seeing how things were going, made Warren his second in command, gave him a badge, a real one. Silver star pinned to his chest. Warren looked at it sometimes and could not quite believe it was real. Him, a lawman, the man who had hidden in the mountains because he could not face what he had done in the war. But Elizabeth had been right. Mistakes did make you stronger, if you learned from them. One evening in early April, Warren and Elizabeth sat on Catherine's porch. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and purple and gold, beautiful enough to make your chest ache. "You doing okay?" Warren asked. Elizabeth nodded, but did not look convinced. "Miss the mountain. Every day, every minute. I hear them at night. The wolves. They call to me. I want to answer, but Catherine says no, says it will scare the neighbors." Warren smiled despite himself. "She's probably right. I know, but it hurt. Inside." Elizabeth put her hand over her heart. Hurt to not answer family. Warren understood. He felt it too. The pull of the high country, the silence and space and freedom. "Summer's coming," he said. "When it does, you can go back. Spend time with them, with the mountain." Elizabeth looked at him. Hope flickered in her eyes. "You promise?" "I promise. Catherine and I already talked about it. June through September you're free. Do what you want, where you want." Elizabeth threw her arms around him, held tight. "Thank you, Father." She had taken to calling him that. Father, not Warren, not Mr. Blackwood. Father. It had felt strange at first, wrong almost. He was not her father, could never replace David Hayes. But Elizabeth did not see it that way. To her, family was not blood. It was choice. It was who stood beside you when the world got cold. And Warren had stood beside her. So he was father. And that was that. But before summer came, there was one more test. It happened in late May. Elizabeth was walking with Catherine Hayes's neighbor's daughter, a girl named Emma, 10 years old. They were in the woods just outside town, close enough to be safe, far enough to feel free. Emma chattered about school, about her doll, about the social at church. Elizabeth listened, half her mind on the girl, half on the forest around them. Then she smelled it. Bare, fresh, close. She grabbed Emma's arm. "Stop." "What?" "Quiet." The black bear emerged from behind a fallen log. Not huge, maybe 300 pounds, but big enough, mean enough. It was a male, territorial. They were in his space. Emma screamed. The bear charged. Elizabeth moved without thinking, pushed Emma behind her, grabbed a fallen branch thick as her arm. The bear came at her, jaws open. Elizabeth did not run, did not freeze. She swung the branch, hit the bear across the snout, hard. The bear reared back, surprised. Elizabeth made her sound, the wolf sound, the warning. The bear paused, confused. This small human thing was not acting like prey. Elizabeth stepped forward, swung again, roared. The bear decided this was not worth it, turned, lumbered away. Elizabeth stood there, branch in hand, breathing hard. Emma stared at her, eyes wide. You saved me." Elizabeth turned, looked at the girl, at this creature of civilization who knew nothing of survival, and realized. This was what Catherine had been teaching her. This was what the town needed from her. Not to abandon her wild self, but to use it, to protect those who could not protect themselves. She dropped the branch, smiled at Emma. "Come, we go home. Tell your mother, we see bear, but bear go away." Emma grabbed Elizabeth's hand, held tight. "Will you teach me to be brave like you?" Elizabeth thought of Warren, of everything he had taught her. "Yes," she said, "I teach you to be brave, to be strong, to stand when world get cold." They walked back to town hand in hand, and Elizabeth understood. She was not caught between two worlds. She was a bridge, connecting them. The first day of June arrived warm and clear. Elizabeth woke before dawn, packed a small bag, dried meat, a blanket, matches, the essentials. Catherine met her in the kitchen. "You sure about this?" she asked. Elizabeth nodded. "I need to. If I don't, I think I go crazy. Explode. I need the mountain like I need breathing." Catherine hugged her. "I understand, but be careful. Come back to me. Promise." "I promise." Warren was waiting outside with 2 horses, his and a smaller mare for Elizabeth. They rode out of town as the sun broke over the eastern peaks, headed north, up into the high country. It took 2 days to reach the places Elizabeth remembered: the cave, the forests, the valleys where the wolves ran. On the second night they made camp near a stream, built a fire, cooked trout that Elizabeth caught with her bare hands, moving so fast through the water that Warren could barely track her. As they ate, Warren saw Elizabeth tilt her head, listening. Then she smiled. From the darkness came an answering sound, a howl, low and long and achingly familiar. Elizabeth stood, walked to the edge of the firelight, made her call. The wolves emerged from the trees like ghosts taking form. There were 8 of them now, some old faces, some new, and in the front, moving slower but still proud, was Silver. The alpha was older, grayer, but her eyes were still sharp, still bright. She walked up to Elizabeth, sniffed her, then pressed her head against Elizabeth's chest. Elizabeth knelt, wrapped her arms around the wolf, buried her face in the thick fur. She was crying. Warren could see her shoulders shaking, but they were not sad tears. They were homecoming tears, relief tears, the tears of someone who had been holding their breath for 6 months and could finally exhale. Elizabeth stayed with the wolves for 3 days. Warren camped nearby, gave her space. He watched from a distance as she ran with them, hunted with them, slept curled against Silver's side like she had done for 6 years. She was wild again, free again, herself again. On the 4th day she came back to camp, sat down beside Warren. "Thank you," she said, "for bring me here, for understand." "You don't need to thank me, kid. You deserve to be happy, however that looks." Elizabeth smiled. "I happy now. I have both, town and mountain, winter and summer, Elizabeth and Beth. I whole." Warren nodded. "You ready to go back?" "Not yet. Few more days. I want to check Mother's cave, make sure it okay." They rode to the cave the next morning. It had been months since they were last there. The fire damage had been repaired by time and weather. New growth pushed up through the ashes. Inside, Rachel's bones still rested where Elizabeth had laid them. Elizabeth knelt beside them, touched the skull gently. "Hello, Mother. I back. I want to tell you. Everything okay now? Bad man dead. Justice done. I live with Aunt Catherine now. I learn. I grow. But I not forget you. Never forget." She arranged wildflowers around the bones, sat in silence for a long time. When she finally stood, her face was peaceful. "I ready now," she said. "Ready to go back to town. But I come again. Every summer, every year. I not abandon her. I not abandon them." She gestured to where the wolves waited outside. "I keep promise. To everyone. To all my families." They rode back to Silver Creek as summer deepened into richness. The world was green and gold and alive, and Elizabeth carried that wildness back with her, kept it burning like a coal in her chest, a reminder of who she was, who she would always be. The years passed. Elizabeth grew from a girl into a woman. She learned to move between both worlds with a grace that surprised everyone, including herself. Winters she lived in town, wore dresses, went to church, helped Catherine with her medical practice, became known as a healer in her own right. People said she had a gift, could sense illness before symptoms showed, could calm frightened children with a touch. Summers she disappeared into the mountains, shed the dresses for buckskin, let her hair grow wild, ran with the wolves. Some people thought it was strange, improper. A young woman living alone in the wilderness like some kind of savage. But Warren and Catherine defended her, and eventually people accepted it. That was just Elizabeth, part civilized, part wild, all her own. When she was 20, a man came to Silver Creek, Samuel Brooks, a widowed school teacher from back east, dark hair streaked with gray, kind eyes. He was older than her by 8 years, but there was a gentleness in him that made the difference seem insignificant. A love of books and nature that matched Elizabeth's own. He courted her carefully, patiently, did not try to tame her, did not ask her to choose between town and mountain. He proposed on a summer evening as they sat by a stream in the high country. The wolves watched from the trees. Silver, older now but still alive, lay nearby. "I don't want to cage you," Samuel said. "I just want to walk beside you, wherever you go, however you choose to live." Elizabeth looked at him for a long moment. Then she said yes. They married in September, a small ceremony. Catherine cried. Warren gave Elizabeth away. The whole town came, and if some people swore they heard wolves howling from the mountains during the vows, well, nobody said anything. Elizabeth and Samuel built a house on the edge of town, close enough to be part of the community, far enough that Elizabeth could see the mountains from her bedroom window. They had 2 children, a boy named David after Elizabeth's father, a girl named Rachel after her mother. Elizabeth raised them the way she had been raised, with books and learning and civilization, but also with wildness and freedom and respect for the mountain. Every summer she took them up into the high country, taught them to track, to hunt, to listen to the forest. And the wolves, the children and grandchildren of Silver's pack, accepted the children, let them run with the pack, taught them the old ways. The town thought it was strange, but they had learned not to question Elizabeth Hayes Brooks. She did things her own way, and somehow it worked. Warren watched it all with quiet pride. He had become sheriff after Burke retired, served for 20 years, fair, just, respected. He never married again. Some people said he was still in love with Grace's ghost. Others said he was married to his work. The truth was simpler. Warren had found his purpose, his family, in Elizabeth, in her children, in the town he protected. That was enough. As he grew older, his body began to fail. Knees that had carried him through war and wilderness started to give out. Hands that had held rifles steady began to shake. But his mind stayed sharp. His eyes stayed clear. Elizabeth visited him often, brought the children, made sure he was cared for. "You don't have to," Warren said once. "I'm not your responsibility." Elizabeth had looked at him like he was being deliberately stupid. "You my father. You save me. You protect me. You teach me. Now I take care of you. That how family work?" Warren had no answer to that. In the summer of 1899, when Warren was 76 years old, he got sick. Not suddenly, gradually. A cough that would not go away. Weight loss, fatigue. Catherine examined him, sat down afterward with her face grave. "It's your lungs," she said. "All those years in the cold. The infections you fought off, they've scarred the tissue. There's nothing I can do." Warren nodded. He had suspected. "How long?" "Months. Maybe a year if you're lucky." "Lucky," Warren repeated. Almost smiled. Elizabeth was 37 then, strong, beautiful, confident in a way that took Warren's breath away. When she heard the news, she cried, but only for a moment. Then she got practical. "You come stay with us," she said. "We have room. I take care of you." Warren wanted to argue, to say he would be fine alone. But the truth was he did not want to be alone, not at the end. So he said yes. He moved into Elizabeth and Samuel's house. They gave him the room with the best view of the mountains. The children visited every day. David was 16, serious and studious like his father. Rachel was 14, wild and laughing like her mother. They sat with Warren, read to him, told him stories, made him laugh. As summer faded into fall, Warren grew weaker. The cough got worse. The pain increased. But he did not complain. He had lived longer than he deserved, had found redemption when he thought none was possible, had been part of something bigger than himself. One evening in late October, as the first snow began to fall, Elizabeth sat beside his bed. Warren's breathing was labored, shallow. The end was close. They both knew it. "Father," Elizabeth said softly, "I want to thank you for everything. for my life, for my freedom. For teach me that I can be both, wild and tame, mountain and town, wolf and human." Warren reached out, took her hand. His grip was weak but warm. "You taught me too, kid. Taught me that it's never too late to change, to be better, to find purpose." He coughed. It racked his whole body. When it passed, he was breathing harder. "I came to that mountain to die," he said. "You know that I wanted to disappear, to punish myself for what happened in the war, for the men I got killed." "I know," Elizabeth said. "But you showed me that survival matters, that life matters, that we honor the dead by living well, by being better." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "You good man, best man I know." Warren smiled. It hurt to smile, but he did it anyway. "I'm gonna go soon," he said. "And I'm okay with that. I lived, really lived, because of you. So thank you." "No, thank you." They sat in silence as the snow fell heavier outside. The mountains disappeared into white. The world grew quiet. Warren looked out the window one last time, at the peaks he had loved, the wilderness that had saved him, the wild places that had given him purpose. Then he looked at Elizabeth, at the woman who had been a scared feral girl when he found her, who had become so much more. "Tell the children," he whispered. Tell them their grandmother would have loved them. Tell them to be brave. Tell them to be kind. Tell them that family is the people who stand beside you when the world gets cold." "I will," Elizabeth promised. Warren closed his eyes, took a breath, let it out, then nothing. Elizabeth sat beside him for a long time, holding his hand, letting the tears come. Outside from the mountains, she heard it, the wolves howling. They knew. Somehow they knew. She opened her mouth, and for the first time in 20 years in the middle of a civilized town, Elizabeth Hayes Brooks answered them. She howled, long and low and full of grief and gratitude and love. The children came running. Samuel came running. Catherine came running. They found her in the room, still holding Warren's hand, still howling. They did not stop her. They understood. They were saying goodbye to a father, a friend, a hero. And the wolves miles away in the high country sang with her, mourning, celebrating, remembering. Warren Blackwood was buried on a hill overlooking Silver Creek in the autumn of 1899. A simple grave, a simple stone. The words carved into it read, "Warren Blackwood, 1823-1899. Husband, father, lawman, friend." He lived. Elizabeth visited the grave every week for the rest of her life, brought flowers, told him about her children, her grandchildren, the town, the wolves. She lived to be 81 years old, died in 1943, surrounded by family, 3 children, 8 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren. But every summer until she could no longer walk, she went up into the mountains, ran with the descendants of Silver's pack, kept the promise she had made, to live in both worlds, to honor both families, to be wholly, completely herself. Her children told stories about her, about the wolf girl who became a healer, about the wild thing who learned to love civilization without losing her wildness. The grandchildren told those stories to their children, and so on. Down through the generations, the story became legend, then myth, then something people were not quite sure was true. But one person knew it was true because he had been there, had seen it all, had been part of it from the beginning. And on a cold December night in 1918, that person finally told the story out loud, passed it on to the next generation. In the farmhouse outside Silver Creek, with snow falling thick and fast outside, the old man finished his tale. Michael sat stunned, silent, his mind reeling. "So," he said slowly, "Grandpa, if Warren Blackwood died in 1899, and you're 64 years old now, then you're—" The old man smiled, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small object, a music box, old, battered, the same music box Catherine had shown Elizabeth all those years ago. My name is Samuel Brooks. I married Elizabeth Hayes. And every word I just told you, that was Warren's story. He told it to me before he died, made me promise to pass it on, to remember, to teach the next generation what he learned. Michael's mouth fell open. But why tell me the story as if you were Warren? Samuel's eyes grew distant, sad, remembering. Because Warren never got to tell his own story. He died believing he was just a washed-up soldier who got lucky. He never understood how much he meant, to Elizabeth, to me, to everyone he saved. He looked at Michael. You came back from the war broken boy. I see it in your eyes. The same look Warren had when I first met him. The look of a man who thinks he's used up all his chances, done too much wrong to ever make right. Michael said nothing. It was true. But I want you to know something, Samuel continued. Warren was the same. 40 men died because of his mistakes. He carried that weight every single day. It nearly crushed him. How did he get past it? He didn't. Not really. But he learned to carry it different. He learned that you honor the dead by living well, by being better, by standing up when it would be easier to hide. Samuel leaned forward, put his hand on Michael's shoulder. You're young. You've got 60 years ahead of you if you're lucky. You can spend them hiding, punishing yourself, letting the war win. Or you can do what Warren did. Find something worth fighting for, someone worth protecting, a purpose bigger than your pain. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can. You can, because Warren could. And he was just a man, flawed, scared, broken. But he chose to stand up anyway, and it made all the difference. Samuel stood, walked to the window, looked out at the snow. Elizabeth taught me something. She lived in two worlds, wild and tame. Never chose one over the other, just learned to carry both. You can do that too. Carry the war, carry the memories, but don't let them be all you are. He turned back to Michael. You're Samuel's grandson, named after me, but you're also David's great-great-grandson, and Elizabeth's, and Rachel's, and yes, Warren's. We're all in you, all that strength, all that courage, all that stubborn refusal to quit. He took off a ring, simple silver band, placed it in Michael's hand. This was Warren's wedding ring. He gave it to me before he died, said to pass it on to someone who needed reminding that love is stronger than death, that purpose is stronger than pain, that we're never really alone if we choose to let people in. Michael stared at the ring, felt the weight of it, the history. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just live. Really live. Make mistakes. Fall down. Get back up. Be scared, but do it anyway. Just like Warren. Just like Elizabeth. Just like all of us. Michael slipped the ring onto his finger. It fit perfectly. Thank you, Grandpa. Samuel smiled, sat back down in his chair, suddenly looked very old, very tired. Now get some sleep, boy. Morning comes early, and we got work to do. Michael stood, started toward his room, then stopped. Grandpa, the wolves, are they still up there, in the mountains? Samuel's smile widened. What do you think? Michael thought about it, then smiled too. I think they are. I think they'll always be there, waiting, watching, remembering. Smart boy. That night Michael slept without nightmares for the first time since coming home from the war. And in his dreams he ran through snow-covered forests with wolves beside him, chasing something he could not see but knew was there. Purpose, hope, a future worth fighting for. In the morning he would begin, would start to rebuild himself, to find his own version of what Warren had found. But for now, he slept. And the wolves sang in the mountains, and the old man sat by the fire remembering everything, everyone, all the lives that had touched his, all the love that had saved him. Outside the snow continued to fall, covering the world in white, making everything new again, and somewhere in the high country, where the pines grow thick and the air is thin and the silence is absolute, a pack of wolves howled at the moon. They were singing for Warren, for Elizabeth, for Rachel, for David, for all the lost ones who had found their way home. They were singing the old songs, the wild songs, the songs that have no words but need none, the songs of family, of freedom, of lives lived fully and without apology. And if you listened closely on certain cold nights when the moon is bright and the world is still, you could hear an answer. Human voices joining the wolf song, bridging the gap between wild and tame, between past and present, between what was and what will be, the circle complete. The legacy passed on, the story told, and in the telling made immortal. Samuel Brooks sat alone in his chair long after Michael had gone to bed. The fire burned low. The house settled into its nighttime creaks and whispers. He looked at the photograph on the mantel. Elizabeth, taken in 1920, 23 years before she died. She was old in the picture, gray-haired, wrinkled, but her eyes were still that same clear, wild blue. "I told him," Samuel whispered to the photograph. "I told your story, Warren's story, our story. I think he understood." The fire popped. Samuel chose to believe it was Elizabeth answering, approving. He picked up the music box, wound it one more time. The melody filled the quiet room. The same lullaby Rachel had sung to Elizabeth 70 years ago, the same one Elizabeth had sung to their children, the same one their grandchildren sang now, a chain of love stretching back through time, unbroken. Samuel felt tears on his face, did not wipe them away. He was old, 88 years old. Most of his friends were gone. Catherine had died in 1925. The town had changed. The world had changed. But the mountains were still there. The wolves were still there. The wild places still existed for those brave enough to seek them. And the story lived on, would live on, as long as someone was willing to tell it. He looked out the window toward the dark shapes of the peaks against the starlit sky. "Thank you," he said, "to Warren, to Elizabeth, to the mountain, to whatever force had brought them all together in that long-ago winter. Thank you for teaching me that love comes in many forms, family comes in many forms, home comes in many forms, and that we're never too broken to be made whole again." The fire crackled its agreement. Samuel closed his eyes. Let the music wash over him. Let the memories come. And he was young again, running through the forest with Elizabeth beside him, the wolves racing ahead, the mountain welcoming them home. He was whole again, complete again, surrounded by everyone he had ever loved, living in that eternal summer where nothing hurt and everything was possible. The music box wound down. The melody faded. The silence returned. Samuel opened his eyes, smiled. "I'm coming," he whispered. "Not today, but soon. Wait for me, all of you. I'll be there soon." He stood, banked the fire, turned off the lamp, made his slow way to bed, and as he lay down, he heard it, faint, distant, but unmistakable. Wolves howling on the mountain, calling him, welcoming him, telling him that when the time came when he was ready to leave this world behind, they would be waiting. Samuel smiled in the darkness, closed his eyes, and slept the sleep of a man who had lived fully, loved deeply, and left the world better than he found it. In the morning Michael would find him there, peaceful, gone, and he would understand, would remember the story, would carry it forward, would tell his own children one day about the wolf girl and the mountain man and the wild places where courage is born and love never dies. The circle would continue, the legacy would endure, the story would live. Because some things are too important to forget, too precious to lose, too true to ever really end. They just change form, passed from one generation to the next, like a flame moving from candle to candle. The source may change, but the light remains. And on the mountains now and forever, the wolves still sing, still remember, still keep watch over the wild places and the wild hearts that dare to claim them. The end is just another beginning. The circle turns. The story continues. And in the hearts of those who listen, Elizabeth and Warren live on. forever young, forever free, forever running through snow-covered forests with wolves beside them and the whole wide sky overhead. Home at last, complete at last, whole.